I'm Stewart Bond, and I want to give you an overview of our Nexus Intelligence platform, developed here in the Fylde Coast as a part of our Vanguard programme. But the first thing that I want us to take a look at is the concepts in terms of that development that we wanted to ensure. So it had to be real-time data, actionable intelligence. It was application-based, and we wanted to incorporate some of the more predictive analysis. Along with other elements, the concepts they wanted to introduce, the two that won't become apparent as a part of the demonstration is those in terms of sustainable. Now, what we mean here is that we wanted to introduce new ways of actioning and looking at data, but we didn't want to necessarily use the more proprietary sort of license-based solutions that are out there, such as Click and Tableau. We wanted to introduce more open source so that we could look to see where we could benefit in using those technologies that are available to us without those heavy licensing costs and maintenance costs going forward. We also wanted to ensure that we used our existing skills and knowledge, and in the Fylde Coast we're very fortunate to have some very clever individuals that are able to work with us and create what you're about to see. And although we introduced a number of contractors in the early days to help us looking at new ways of visualizing data and new methods and open source technologies available, we actually did knowledge skills transfer so that we could have our own resources taking this forward and continuing that development. So just a quick look at the construct, if you will, of Nexus Intelligence. We have our access to our source systems, and where possible, we link to these in real time. Where not possible, we bring that data into the data warehouse, and we have that infrastructure layer. So we use VMware. We have a lot of virtual servers here in the Fylde Coast, and that's our core sort of data warehousing. We then have our product suite layer, if you will, that encompasses Nexus Intelligence as a whole, which is our SQL service. So we do use proprietary software there in terms of managing that data, but as you can see, we've introduced more of that open source technology going forward. And finally, with regards to access, we needed to ensure that we had a secure way of accessing when people were viewing data, because it could be patient-based data, and we enabled, obviously, external users to come in. So let's jump straight to the login screen. The first thing you will see is you can log in with your network username and password, or as you can see here, you can actually, if you're a smart card user, you can use that to log in. So let's just log in to Nexus Intelligence. And the first thing that we see is the Fylde Coast dashboard. Now, before we go through some of the areas, you may want to make a note of some of the sort of inpatient, outpatient and A&E activity figures here, because they should change slightly as we go through this short demonstration. So the first thing for us to look at is, as we mentioned, when our costs are application based. So here what we can do is we can go to the App Store and we can look at the apps that are available to us. And this gives us the ability for users to have a specific bespoke set of apps that meets their needs. And as you can see, these are my installed apps, and these are the ones that are available to me. And if I wanted to select one of these apps, what it does, it gives me that access request, which is where we cover our information governance. So our IG teams know who is requesting and who's been authorised, and our system administrators can then support that and moving it forward. So you complete your details here, and there's an audit process that follows that. So if I just go back now to my apps, so this is my view. We also have a reports area, so we can go to the reports store. And this shows that we supported obviously those legacy SSRS type reports, and we can bring those in here so people can still have a tailored sort of report view. But let's just go back to the Fylde Coast dashboard, and I want to take you through what we see here. So in the Fylde Coast we are two CCGs, being Blackpool and Fylde and Wyre. We can select either of those along the top. So if you see the first thing you highlight is the population as a whole for the Fylde Coast, which is 352,000, and you'll see that we put the population at the heart of everything we do as we're going through. We can then select, if we wish, Blackpool, and it will give us the population for Blackpool, but it was also tailor all of the information that's associated into Blackpool. But for now, what we'll stick with all, and we'll look at some of the data that's available. Now, the first thing you'll notice is there are some active icons. Those enable us to go into applications. So we wanted a seamless way that we could navigate from the dashboard into various applications without actually going to the sort of My Apps container. So this is where we would go to our population health intelligence application, and we've got another video on that that you could see. For now, we're going to concentrate on the core data that we've got within our fyldecoast dashboard. So let's just have a look at this now. So we've got 964 patients at the hospital, inpatients. And we can see here that 55 of those are on an EPC pathway, which is our enhanced primary care. We can also see that 12 are a part of our ECS service, which is our extensive care service. And we can see here that we actually lost 26 days due to the technical evolution of the delayed transfers of care. So of those 964, we can see here that actually 753 are inpatients in beds, and we've got 106 in pre-op, family or obs wards, and we've got 105 which are through day cases, and those three figures make up that 964. We can also see that we've had 149 admitted today, and we've only discharged 83. Looking at our outpatients now, this is a cumulative view, so it starts at 0 at a minute past midnight, and as those clinics start at the beginning of the day, this will start to sort of increase as we go through. So far there's been 140 new appointments, 314 follow-ups, 46 that didn't attend, and 114 cancellations. Now the next part is our emergency. So this is our actively live A&E department now, of which we've got 62 people. 24 arriving by ambulance and 38 arriving by non-ambulance. We can also see that attended today we've had 71, and we've got admitted of those at 12. And our final column is some of our community activity, which is primarily around the new models of care. So we've got our ECS waiting, so they're awaiting, they've been referred into the service, the extensive care service that is, and we've got our ECS active. But we've also got our EPC active and our non-EPC. And this looks at other neighbourhood types of activity that we've got, but it also does actually introduce some of our sort of rapid response, MSK, etc. And we will look to incorporate that in future developments. So let's just take a look at the active icons for a moment. So let's just take a look at our charting here for A&E, and this just gives us a simple graph view that we can start to see where we are in the day, and it gives us today, which is the blue, yesterday, red, and the equivalent day 7 days ago, which you can see there is in the amber. So looking at that, we've also got a mode of arrival, and here is where we potentially have access to the A&E application. But I'm not going to go in that at this moment in time. I'm going to select another one. If we come over to this side, we've got a number of active icons here, and the one that I want to show you is our GP application. So here, again, using the mapping technologies, what we can do is we can look to see where those patients are from in relation to the practices. So if we take a practice here, we can start to see that this practice has 39 patients that are inpatients, and if we look over here in sort of the Lytham areas, we've got 44, and if we take another practice, sort of Bloomfield, we've got 29. So that just gives us a sort of an understanding of where those patients are from. But what this does, it gives us the ability now to actually open the GP application. And what it'll do is it'll obviously check my authorization, and then it will launch the GP application, and we can start to see a little bit more data now. So straight away, for those patients, I can see that 1 are elective, I can see that 23 are non-elective, and I can see that I've got 5 day cases, and 3 of my patients are currently in A&E. Here, I've got some inpatient specialty, so I can see that I've got 5 rehabilitation, and I've got 3 in general surgery and so on. But I'm also able to see some inpatient summary information now. So I can see that one of those patients are estimated discharge today. I've got 6 awaiting the board round. I've got 8 with a length of stay of more than 7 days. I've got a medical outlier, and I've got 15 with a discharge destination unknown. Now, I've also got some AHP intensity, which could be referred to physio or referred to OT, and I can see that of those 2 have actually been referred to the discharge team. So again, the population for that practice is in the centre, and over this side, what we can start to see now is just some simple charting that shows that total inpatients by discharge by month, and if we just select their December, and it shows 302 patients from that practice were inpatients during December. We could also see here that they had an average length of stay of 3 days, and we can also see in relation to delayed transfers of care, it was 25 lost during that month. We have also got some finance information now coming through. So we look at the last 3 full months of activity of that practice, and I will say that these are indicative and subject to change due to data quality, clinical coding and financial reporting processes. But what we can see here is we can just have an indication of the total cost for that practice population. So 481,000 was December. November, that was over $500,000, and in October that was almost 700,000. And again, we can look specifically at non-elective costs or outpatient costs. So what we've also got is, again, some of the community data down here. So we've got 9 are awaiting the ECS service. We've got 4 active ECS patients and 82 active EPC patients. What I'm also able to do is, across the Fylde coast, we are carved up into 10 neighbourhoods. And as an MDT view, obviously this is looking potentially as a GP or a whole practice view, but if I wanted to look at from an MDT point of view, I'd more than likely want to see all of my neighbourhood that I'm responsible for. So here what we can do is we can select a view by neighbourhood, and what it will do, it will actually incorporate the data across that neighbourhood. And in a moment we should see that data change. Oh, yeah, there we go. So now it's gone up to 23,000 population, and again, all of that data is refreshed. So I'll just close that neighbourhood at the moment, because what you will have also seen is I have a View Inpatients tab. Now, for demonstration purposes, I've been set up as a part of this practice, so I can now go in and view these patients. But it's not going to be live patient views. This is all sort of dummy patient view from this moment on for the purposes of the demonstration. So what we can do then is we can actually then start to see what that looks like. So those patients we know from the screen, but we can start to, if I was the GP, I'd have access to the hospital number, the NHS number and the patient name. I can see the length of stay, the consultant, and the ward that they reside on, and I've also got some text that shows me the next critical activity and the primary diagnosis. But what I'm also able to do at this point is actually, because we collaborate with our acute trust, we can actually jump into the ward tracker. Now, the ward tracker is a very innovative development by our hospital trust. We tracks the patients across the wards. And again, this is test information, so it won't make a great deal of sense, but it gives you an idea of what could be available to those that are looking at this, that have got that clinical access. And we can see here we've got a clinical assessment. For now, it's a test at age 119 years young. It gives us some board round information and a treatment plan and so on. We've got some AHP referrals. We'd have some pharmacy information, and we'd have the patient journey that would be highlighted here. So I just close that and go back to our overview. So jumping back now to the dashboard, and so I hope that gives you a sort of an overview or an introduction to Nexus Intelligence. This is where we have really strived to do things differently and work collaboratively across the Fylde coast. And I'd just like to say I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.